Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Richmond Kickers Weekly. I'm your host, Taylor Rockwell. Daryl Grove is not with me in studio today. He will be back next week. But until Daryl returns, I am instead going to be talking to Richmond Kickers head coach David Bulow. David is with me, going to be with me on the phone, discussing the Kickers' recent disappointing loss to Orlando City B. They are in the midst of a 2-game losing streak in the league. I think 3 games overall. So we're going to be getting into sort of what's gone wrong for the Kickers lately, what David Bulow thinks they need to do to fix it, as well as sort of his ways of dealing with the team after a loss, some other topics in there as well. So hopefully you enjoy. I will now turn it over to me talking to David. With me now, I've got Father of the Year and Richmond Kickers head coach David Bulow. David, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me after putting your youngest down. I appreciate that.
Of course, anytime.
So I'm assuming we'll have to kind of speak quietly. I'm going to try not to get you too animated so you don't wake up any napping children.
No, it's all good. He sleeps like a rock.
All right, there we go. But I do want to start off with kind of an unpleasant note because the Kickers lost midweek to Orlando City B. Then you all kind of traveled back. I'm wondering for you, after a disappointing loss, like how do you go about that road trip back? Like, are there harsh words after the game and then you sort of try to like pick people up on the journey home? Or is it sort of like what's done is done, let's just move on from here immediately after the game?
Hard to tell. It's a little bit of both. I think it also kind of depends on kind of previous conversations, how I feel in the moment, kind of the result of the performance. I thought Wednesday was really challenging because every single metric we had, we controlled the game, we dominated possession. I think they're a team that wants the ball and wants to possess. I think they had less than 300 passes. They're around 70% passing percentage. So that's an indication that our defending was good. We had 60% of the possession, just short of 500 passes. They're a team that creates quite a few chances. So I think that was the only thing that we missed, that we didn't win statistically with shots, but really the quality of chances favored us as well. So it was a really difficult game to assess straight afterwards without watching the video, without really breaking down the numbers. Really what I told the team was there was just 3 moments. I mean, the first goal, we knew they were going to play short on everything, and we kind of fell asleep on that first goal. So 3 minutes in, it's kind of like, come on, guys. I mean, it was just a matter of concentration from that. Their second goal came from a throw-in. The third goal was obviously a bad challenge from Yvonne for the penalty, but even Akira got a hand to it. So, we created chances. Joe had a couple chances. DJ had a wide open goal that he probably should score. So if you really zoom out and look at that game, was it a game that we could have won? Yes. Am I frustrated again that there's little details that we're missing? Yes. Do we need a break? 100% yes. I mean, the amount of games that we played compared to them had a factor, but it's not an excuse. And were the referees poor? Yes. But that's also not a reason to blame the loss. So it was just a frustrating day, and they need to know that there's little details in all facets of their game that they have to pay attention to, and little things off the field that might not make sense to them or not matter to them in the moment bleed over to little details that they're missing, and that was the difference, I thought, on Wednesday from winning and losing.
So one of those little details, I'm assuming, would be the kind of set-piece defending. It's been, I would say, if not an issue, then a concern that there have been a couple different times where it felt like some players switched off, or maybe there was just kind of like not the correct approach, I guess, in dealing with the set pieces the way you all have wanted. So like in that moment, for you as the coach, is there is there frustration? Is there like an inclination to sub that player out? Like, how do you go about kind of dealing with things if you feel like we've dealt with this in practice, we've dealt with it in training, why is it still happening?
I mean, ultimately, that's a flaw of me as a coach. I mean, when it happens once or twice, maybe it's a problem of the player. But if it's consistently an issue, then I have to reflect on myself as a coach, and that's 100% the case here. We gave him a few days off. Actually, Mika's on his way to my house right now during nap time. We have a a super secret kitchen table nap time meeting to kind of go over some things to get ready before we start up getting ready for Texas. So we're very aware that there must be a breakdown in communication from me to the players. So it's something we just have to focus on and persist with. But again, what we're trying to do is a bit more ambitious than maybe what the rest of the league is doing or thinking of, and it's going to take time. So are these breakdowns just part of the learning process? And I would like to think that the learning would happen faster, but we have to be patient. And kind of the tired kind of example is, Rio Ferdinand saying that there's no way that Pep can do what he did at Barcelona and Bayern Munich in England, because culturally they couldn't do it. And, Rio looks like a fool now, after a 6-0 FA Cup win in a treble, So not that I'm comparing myself to Pep Guardiola in any way, but if we're going to try to do something that's so different than what the rest of the league is used to, or maybe this country is used to, and again, I say that with all humility, then it's going to take some time to get that going.
So, my read then with that in mind, in the first 20 minutes was that you all were trying to build out of the back as you have this season. Orlando, it seemed, made it difficult to play forward from the fullbacks. So, if one of the fullbacks got the ball, it felt like there weren't many options. And then I think they did a very good job of marking Hughes and Gallardo when they tried to drop in to kind of provide other outlets. Is that about right? And I'm wondering if it is then, what is your plan B when it feels like, okay, our midfield options are marked off, we can't kind of play forward wide. What do you do from there?
The way they were playing, the midfield options were not completely marked out. Okay. There was one or two options left because they run out of players. It's just our recognition of it, our understanding of it. So when the ball comes into a right back in the midfield seam, they should be preparing. They should be communicating a bit faster with the opposition to say, this is where the option's going to be. If the opposition takes away 1-2, then 3 is on. If they take away 3 and 4, then 1 or 2. You know what I mean? It's kind of a quick evaluation and understanding of where your options are so you can play faster. And that was the problem, because we had options available. It's just our processing is just a little bit slow at this point. And that's why I think it's more of a learning option. Can we work on our rotations and make sure the rotations are clear 100%? And that's what we're going to do. Can we make small adjustments? That's some of it as well, but it's just getting an understanding and having a comfort under pressure to make those decisions. The wind also didn't help one bit, because that kind of eliminated a long option. If Connor or Yvonne were trying to play almost over the top to break that pressure, the wind just knocked it right down. So that became a difficult situation in the first half that we were aware of, but we had to cope with it, and we just didn't do great with it. But when we did find those options playing through the midfield on the ground and didn't have to contest with the wind, I thought we did well. Eli's goal was a perfect example of that. We forced them into a decision and then picked the right choice and put Eli in. So it's just a matter of comfort more than anything for me, and belief that what we're saying is going to work.
Maybe there's an obvious answer to this question, which is when we start scoring a bunch of goals. But, what are the things, if people are watching, if fans are watching these games, what are some things you think that will be telltale signs that it is starting to click, that players are starting to understand? Is it like faster in the kind of turning and playing forward? Is it faster in switching the point of attack? What do you think people watching could kind of look to see, okay, they are kind of picking it up, they're doing it a little bit better this time?
So the genius of the game, right? Whoever invented soccer, Johnny Soccer, back 150 years ago in England.
Yeah, I think that was it. Johnny Soccer, for sure. Definitely him.
I think his head. I saw that on Wikipedia. The beauty of the game is the space is too big for that many players. So if we're going to get pressed, which we will get pressed a lot until we can sort this out, they can't press us and cover the space in their own half. They have to take a choice. Jose Mourinho, I'm sure you're well aware, his choice was, okay, you can have the ball by your own goal. You just can't have it, but you can't have the space in front of my goal.
Yeah.
Horrifically boring, but it's a tactic. So if teams are going to press us, you'll know we're doing well if we're creating quick breakaway chances consistently when teams are stepping high up. And yeah, so if we can play forward faster under more control, you'll know it's working. But that's what I've said to the team. I said, Lansing, they pressed us because they're built to do that. I think it's interesting that they've had a lot of success against us and not as much against everybody else, because other teams aren't really trying to play from the back. They're very quick to get the ball forward. And so if you're going to press and somebody just launches it over the top of you, your press isn't going to be very effective. Mm-hmm. But they also set a type of blueprint. And I've told the team already, is that if you want to dominate possession, you're going to have to deal with the press. And until we can prove that we can play through a press, everybody's going to press us. But as soon as we can consistently build through it and create chances, then people are going to stop pressing. Not many teams press Man City and Barcelona just because it's not worth it. I mean, they're just going to play right through, and you don't have anybody else to protect your goals. So it's just a continual learning process that we're getting punished for it now. Mm-hmm. And we just have to work on the little details of how to bypass those advanced numbers.
So results, at least very recent results, have not gone your way. And that, I imagine, helps kind of keep people motivated, keeps people wanting to kind of implement the system and learn it. When things aren't going well, say after this result against Orlando, how do you sort of make the training sessions enjoyable for the players? Because there's so much we hear talked about with managers who do emphasize possession, who do emphasize kind of like high octane, you got to move, you always got to be moving and trying to find space. Like that can lead to burnout a little bit. So I'm wondering what your approach is to kind of keeping players motivated, keeping players into it, and keeping them enjoying it, basically.
There's something recently, Christian Lavers from the ECNL did a talk about a month or two ago. And he talked about, and this is in the youth sense, but it's applicable just because it's soccer. There's physical fatigue, but there's also cognitive fatigue. So yes, you're right. If you're in your training sessions going tactics, they're going thinking, and it becomes really challenging cognitively. And so you have to filter in, hey, don't think, just go out and play. And you can work those into your sessions. So, I'm big on the game teaching the ideas, so they need to learn these concepts within the context of the game. And think about it. You want to go to practice and play soccer. And so we play a lot of soccer. And so you'll probably start to – I don't think the guys have a problem coming with training because they're playing a lot of soccer. Mm-hmm. There's nothing gimmicky about anything that we do in training. It's isolating some situations and tying that context to what it looks like in 11v11. So we can start with the goalkeeper, play to midfield, and then stop it. And then do it again just to deal with the press. But then we'll play 11v11 to try to fit that context or that idea into the context of 11v11. And that's something that youth coaches can't do as well, because you usually have 14 players and a quarter of the field. And that's the nice thing about us, that we have access to full fields. I've got 26 guys at training, so you can really tie it back into the context of playing. So as long as you're creating some games and situations throughout the week, and that's really meticulously planned, it becomes quite easy to train because you're going to play soccer. And if you're tying that back to the results, yes, it's frustrating we're losing, but we've lost 2 games of the 9 by more than 1 goal. One game was NCFC. 11 games. NCFC, we lost 3-1, and Lansing away, we lost 3-1. But that 3-1 away was with 10 men. So everything's close. Everything's really on the knife edge. I think if DJ scores against Greenville away, if DJ and Joe score against Orlando, all of a sudden we've drawn 1 away. Are we really feeling that bad about ourselves? I mean, it's so close here to going well. And I think you have to be mindful of, yes, we won, but we didn't play well, or we lost, but the performance was decent. It's just those 3 moments that let us down on Wednesday. So I want to be careful on only looking at the results and making sure that the progress in the principles are the key for us. And I think they are. And you have to make sure that you find times to dig in them when they're not getting it, but also, applaud them for when they're doing things the right way.
You mentioned North Texas SC. I do want to move on to your game against them in a minute, but I have another question for you about Orlando City first. This was an Orlando City team that I think coming into this game were bottom of the table. I think they'd only won one game. And I think there was some expectation. I saw some fans kind of getting excited about we're going to hang a few goals on them. This is going to be a good confidence builder. I'm wondering, do you think that kind of bleeds into the players' minds as well and kind of factors into how they prepare for games like this? Because it did seem to me like there were moments, especially in the first half, where I've played in those games where I thought the other team was sort of oh, you guys have nothing to play for. You're not going to care about this. And then suddenly they're really up for it. And you're whoa. We had an agreement. You guys weren't going to be going really hard in this game. And it did feel like there were moments when the Kickers players were a little bit outworked for the ball. And I'm wondering, do you think that there is an element of the psychological psychological vulnerability, I guess, of Orlando City aren't very good. We can kind of go in and kind of give it to them. And then when things don't go your way, it's harder to kind of come back from.
Maybe. I mean, that's hard to tell. I mean, you're getting into the brains of 18 individuals, so that I think is hard. It's very possible. I know from the motivation side of it, I've said, look, if we take care of our business and do things the right way for us, then we're going to have a very good chance of winning. I think we have more quality top to bottom than Orlando does. I think that's clear. Mm-hmm. But you're right. On any day, anybody can win. I mean, Man U beat PSG. I mean, who would have thought that was good? You know what I mean? It's kind of like PSG was the better team, but Man U knocked them out of the Champions League. So that can happen. I don't know. I mean, it's a challenging question, I think. Mm-hmm. There's probably some of that, but it's almost impossible to tell, really.
All right, then I have one more slightly negative question, then we can move on to happier topics, potentially. But I do have to ask you about your face, because in the 52nd minute, have you seen the still images of your face from this game?
Ronnie Pascal did that. My wife has always said that I have a very stretchy face, so I don't get to see it very often, but... Yeah, so it was quite stretchy.
I'm wondering, because I think the way I have it characterized is I'm not mad, I'm disappointed. Actually, I'm mad and disappointed is a little bit what it looked like. Do you remember what it was in that moment that was causing you to sort of look upon the field with sadness?
100%.
Oh, okay.
The referees.
Okay.
It was the referees.
All right.
There's nothing more that I hate in this world than a referee that won't have a conversation. It drives me nuts. And that was, I was trying to have a conversation with the ref and he was blanking me and I was just asking for clarification. I'm really quite polite to referees, comparatively. And I just want to have a conversation and I wasn't getting it. And I was getting frustrated with them more than anything. So, obviously my team, the fact that we weren't executing to the level that I think we're capable of didn't help with my mental state in the moment. But yeah, that was all about the refs. And,
all right.
Just talk to me. That's all I want.
Just somebody talk to me. All right, that makes sense.
I just want somebody to talk to. It's as simple as that. Thanks, Taylor. I was sitting here alone talking to a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, and then you called. So.
That's what I'm here for. That's. I'm happy to be of service. I do want to ask. So you all have this weekend off. Then you host North Texas SC on June 1st. They have not lost the season, 6 wins, 1 draw. They have Toronto midweek, who I think are bottom of the table, so they're probably going to be 7-0-1 when they come to Richmond. Why do you think they've been so strong so far? And what, not necessarily what is your game plan to stop them, but sort of what do you plan to do over these 9 days to kind of pick the players back up, get them ready for a team that is probably going to be at the top of the table or near the top of the table for most of the season?
Our motivation is the same it's been all the season for us. It's to win the regular season and win the playoffs. I mean that's pretty easy. I mean that's why everybody's here. So it's easy to bounce back. That we're in 4th place. The sky is not falling. There's still 2/3 of the season to go. Who's to say that we can't go on a 7-0 run just like Texas has? And now we're joint top in 2 months' time. So. That's to start. I think this league is going to be very up and down. I think I mean, they've played Orlando and Toronto quite a bit, and I don't want to take anything away from them, because you play the teams that are in front of you, and we lost to Orlando. I think it'd be foolish to write off Toronto. I think it's a pretty even competitive league. That being said, Texas, I think what they had, their strength is it's a continuation from one of the best academies in the country.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're going to be a bulk of those guys that have played together since they were 11 years old, under the same kind of style, under the same system, and the same principles and methods of play and of coaching. And there's a consistency that is unique. I remember hearing the other podcast. I won't say their name because I only listen to yours, but somebody told me
that's the correct answer.
Another podcast that they thought that Tormenta would do quite well, because they essentially had the core of their PDL team from last year that was moving to this league. And while that's true, the type of soccer that they're playing and their style and the consistency of the group has been the same for, almost a decade for some of these kids, 5-10 years. I mean, that's what I'm fighting against right now. I mean, imagine, I keep saying to Mika, I said, what if we had this exact same group next year? And now we're doing less teaching and more refining and more perfecting or elaborating more on what we're doing. I think that's a big factor on team success. It's why can a mid-major basketball team in the NCAA tournament compete with future NBA players? It's because you've got 4 seniors starting that have played together for 4 years. That consistency and message and topic and style and familiarity with each other goes a long way. My hope with Texas is they're not used to playing for 8 months in a long, hot summer, and maybe they'll get some burnout, but I doubt it. I think they've shown that they're going to be one of the better teams in the league, and I'm excited to test ourselves against that. We played probably the best half of soccer that we have against NCFC in the first half, and those are against some really top quality pros. So if we can do that against them, there's no reason we can't do that against Texas, but it will definitely be a challenge. There's no question about that.
So challenging game against North Texas SC on June 1st. One more question, David, and then I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but you mentioned the idea of like how much better you all might be, or how much more cohesive of a unit it would be if you were able to kind of keep players from one season to the next. I'm wondering, how realistic of a possibility do you think that will be? Because Kickers have tended to be a club that kind of has a lot of turnover. Maybe they keep a couple players for like multi-year contracts, but generally speaking, there's a lot of turnover. Is that something that you would like to see changed, or you hope gets changed?
No, I mean, I think there's some balance that I think we want to be a club that kind of gets guys in and they play well and they move on and make a name for themselves, and hopefully the Kickers were part of their journey to top-level soccer. But at the same time, there's going to be some guys. Matt Bullock wanted to stay. Scotty wanted to stay. Connor wanted to stay. Braden wanted to come back. So there's some people that really love Richmond and love the Kickers, and hopefully they at least like playing for me, that they want to stick around for a couple of years. But saying that, I mean, the contracts that we put together most of them were for 2-year, at least 2-year options. So I think there's going to be a bulk of this group back. There's some that are going to move on. Of course, it's just natural in pro sports. And I won't put them out here, but I've had players come to me, and say, hey, my name is so-and-so. I like the way you guys are playing. Josh Hughes did that last year. Mm-hmm. So my hope is that you'll get some players that say, hey, there's a reputation for the Kickers that they play good soccer. It's a fun place to play. It's a great city. They're competitive. I want to go there. So if we can start bringing some top talent to come with the core that we already have, I think the future looks good for us. It's just hard right now because we're learning so much. And, if you keep a good group around, they can become teachers for the next guys that come in as well. Say, hey, this is how Dave does things. This is what's expected. Here, I'll help you watch video to get it right, and maybe there's less learning as we move forward. But it's an exciting prospect. I mean, Meek and I are determined. We're going to get this right, and we're not going to back down from our principles to make it what we want it to be and what you expect it to be.
All right. Well, you're so determined that you're having a secret, kitchen table nap time meeting. So I don't want to keep you.
Secret nap time kitchen table meeting. Yeah,
there we go.
It starts in 10 minutes, and I've got to make some finger foods and hors d'oeuvres. Luke is very particular about that. He wants not sweet tea, but tea with sugar so he can sweeten himself. He's a bit of a monster.
A man after my own heart, I must say. But yes, I will let you go. I will let you go prepare for all that. I appreciate that you have such dedication to both the spread and your team tactics. So thank you very much, David, for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Of course, just one more thing. I'm looking forward to tomorrow because European Arsenal is playing, not England Arsenal. So I'm looking forward to a good European win tomorrow. If Chelsea was playing English Arsenal, we'd be in trouble. But European Arsenal is a different prospect. So,
all right. Well,
come on, you Gunners.
I won't say worst of luck or best of luck. Fine. Best of luck to your Gunners. I'll begrudgingly say that. But yes, enjoy tomorrow and enjoy your weekend. And we will see you next weekend for North Texas SC.